Okay, hello, everyone. Today's date is March 19, 2023. We have a simulation, Israeli-Palestinian Confederation simulation with Dr. Igal Ben-Nun. I haven't seen him join the simulation yet, but Dan, is he with us?
Not yet.
Okay. Can we stop the recording and start when he comes in because he needs to?
Okay, if you want to wait for him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, can you stop it? And because he needs to be part of the, okay, so. All right, today's date is March 19, 2023. We are having a simulation with Dr. Igal Ben-Nun. I have I received a message from him that he's having an electrical problem in Israel, but hopefully he will solve the problem and join us as soon as possible. We are the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation. This is a simulation. We are simulating how a common government for the people of Israel and Palestine will be able to make peace. We are simulating the election and the existence of a common government so that it is clear. We are speaking about a common government for the people of Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza, total of 14 million people who will elect a secular democracy based on a constitution, a secular government that will be independent and separate from the government of Israel and the Palestinian government. A common government that would be competing with the Israeli and the Palestinian government, but does not seek to dismantle the Israeli or the Palestinian government. My name is Joseph Avasar, and my email is josephavasar@gmail.com. The IPC has a constitution. The constitution is on ipconfederation.org. It's in 3 languages: Arabic, Hebrew, and English. If you go to the English side or any side and you click on the constitution, you will see, and that's what I'm trying to do, but the Zoom thing is blocking me. Oh, here. You will see the structure of the common government in the Constitution. The Constitution has already been written. It has a preamble. It deals with three branches of government: a legislative branch with 300 parliament members, an executive branch with a president and vice president, and a judicial branch. All of it based on equality for Palestinians and Israelis together. In order for them to pass legislation, it would need 55% of the Palestinian parliament members and 55% of the Israeli parliament members to vote yes on the legislation, and then it will be submitted to the Israeli and the Palestinian governments to give them veto if it violates their sovereignty. If it doesn't violate their sovereignty, it does not give them veto. And this is what we are simulating today. Today is not a lecture, it's a simulation. We are hoping we will have Dr. Igal Ben-Nun. He just texted me that he's having problems with his electricity in Israel. But hopefully he will join soon. Dr. Igal Ben-Nun specializes in the history of Moroccan Jews, as well as the origins of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. He received his first PhD from Paris 8 University, writing his thesis about the clandestine relations between Morocco and Israel from 1956 to 1972. Basically, it's the clandestine relations between the Israeli Mossad and the King of Morocco at the time. He received a second PhD in historiography of the Hebrew Bible from, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, but as I understand it, it is the Sorbonne in Paris, which is one of the most prestigious universities in France, both of which he received the highest acclaim. He eventually became a highly sought-after lecturer, teaching at Paris 8 University and Tel Aviv University. He was born in Morocco and at the age of 18 immigrated to Israel. He lectures in Israel, Morocco, and France about the roots and progression of the Jewish, Muslim, and Christian religions, and about the relationship between Jews and Muslims in the Arab world in general, with an emphasis on their historical relations in Morocco. I think he could give us some information about the question is, are Jews and Muslims historical enemies? And I think that's a central question when we are speaking about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I have seen many of his YouTube presentations. They are fascinating. On April 2nd, 2023, we will have Dr. Livnat Ra'anan and attorney Hanan Al-Sana, one Palestinian, one Israeli. They're specialized in Arab-Israeli politics. We will have on April 16, 2023, Professor Oren Iftachel. He is with another organization called Land for All, and they have a different vision for peace. I do not prescribe to that vision, but he agreed to come to the simulation, and I'm sure he will compare their vision to ours, and it should be very interesting. On April 30th, 2023, we have Sam Bahor and Bernard Abishai. They're both, one is Israeli, Bernard Abishai is Israeli-American, Sam Bahor is, I believe, Palestinian-American. And they both wrote an op-ed in the New York Times several years ago, proposing a confederation. I interviewed both of them. Their vision of peace, of confederation, is different than ours. I would say Sam is more similar to ours, Bernard is not, but that should be a very interesting discussion. We had many, many, many guests in the past, as you may have seen, I am approaching some of them to ask for for them to create a video in favor of the common government. Noam Chomsky agreed, other people agreed, and we are showing those videos on our website. The simulation timeline is 120 minutes. We will have several segments in the simulation followed by 5 minutes speaker. I don't see, is Yigal Ben-Nun already in? I don't see. But we will have, after each segment, we will have a conversation with the speaker. If Yigal Ben-Nun is not in, we will have the conversation between ourselves. We usually do anyway. And then we will have a question and answer with Yigal Ben-Nun if he's here, and then we'll have closing remarks. So that you understand the concept, we have a short video, 2-minute video, that I would like to play that explains the concept very well.
The conflict between Israelis and Palestinians has endured for generations, and instead of time healing the wounds, it's only caused the anger to fester and the violence to grow. But what if there was a way to alleviate the tension? Something that may not outright solve every problem, but at least create a forum that encourages a peaceful compromise. Welcome to the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, a common third government between the Israeli and Palestinian citizens, specifically designed to foster peace, tolerance, and economic prosperity between the two nations. Here's how it works. First off, both Israel and Palestine will keep their respective governments. Israel's Knesset and the Palestinian National Authority will remain unchanged. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, IPC, will be a third entity acting as a unifying agent between the two. The IPC will comprise 300 parliament members elected from 300 districts in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. Above them will preside a president and vice president, one Israeli and one Palestinian. In order for the IPC to pass a law, it will require a 55% majority from its Israeli representatives, as well as a 55% majority from its Palestinian representatives, thereby preventing either side from monopolizing the legislature. Of course, the IPC won't undermine the political power of either the Israeli or the Palestinian government. At any time, Israel or Palestine may veto a law passed by the IPC. If neither side vetoes, the law is passed. And the two nations are another step closer to resolution. Please help us make this a reality. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation. We might speak different languages, but we all mean the same thing.
So before each simulation, we take a pre-simulation survey and we compare it to a post-simulation survey that we will conduct at the end of the simulation. So I'd like to ask you now to vote. At this time, do you support a common government for the people of Israel and Palestine? Please vote yes or no. Okay, can you publish the vote? 19 out of 19 voted yes, that's 100%. And it's probably because many of you have participated in the simulation. I would be amazed if that would be the results and if we actually have a vote in Israel-Palestine.
Yeah, but 10 people didn't vote, Joseph. With 29 people and only 19 votes.
Yeah, so 10 people didn't vote. Okay. So I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna take them as no. That's a good point. So 10 did not vote. Okay, that's a very good. So if you didn't vote, I'm gonna take you as a no. That would give us a challenge.
You can take me as a yes.
Walter, okay, so you're 20.
Subtract 2 for the host and co-host that can't vote.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we cannot vote. So 8 did not vote. Okay.
I lost my internet for a second, so I also would not be a no vote.
You would be a no vote?
No, I would not be a no vote, so a yes vote.
Okay. Okay, so we are 20 yes. Okay. And 8 no. All right. Our objective is to demonstrate how a common government could make peace, not only between the Israelis and the Palestinians, where I'm not being asked that question, but it's essential. I believe that the common government would be much better suited to make peace between the area itself, with Syria, with Iran, with Lebanon, with Egypt, Jordan, Iran, because it is a common government, Jews, Muslim, and Christians together. We are not anti-Israel or anti-Palestine. We are not against any of them. We are in favor of peace. The speaker, who I hope will be here today, is not a representative of the IPC. He was invited to stress this. In fact, I'm not even sure how much he knows about the IPC. I tried to have a meeting with him, and I had kind of like a very short phone conversation, but not a real meeting, and I'm not sure that he understands or goes deeply enough into what we are doing. We are pro-peace, and we are acting based on our narrative, not the Israeli narrative or the Palestinian narrative, but the narrative of the common government, people of Israel and Palestine together. We expect to have a rigorous discussions. Like I said, we do not preclude other formulas for peace. We will ask you, the audience, and Yigal Ben-Nun, if you join, to judge us based on these criteria. Is the IPC formula attainable? Is it possible to create a common government? Is it implementable? Is there a downside for either side, the Israeli or the Palestinians? But we ask you to be fair and not judge us based on perfection. Please judge us based on the alternative. So a lot of people say, well, I would prefer this and this and that. Well, perfect, but is it possible to get this and that? Judge us based on what is the alternative. What are you proposing as an alternative? We are proposing many legislations in each simulation. We try to change the legislations, but we have a lot more. One of the reasons that we repeat some of the legislation is because the speaker is not aware of what we are doing, and we want to deal with some basic legislation that would make him, because they usually ask, well, what about the big picture? So we try to bring legislation, right, about the big pictures, and they tend to repeat themselves. But we have a lot more legislation we can show. We are limited by time, and we ask you to look at the big picture, not to start with technical arguments, arguing about technical issues. We're asking you to refrain from comments, but we encourage questions. So if you're thinking this is unrealistic, Israel will not allow it to happen, please put that in the chat or keep it to the end. But here are some suggested questions you may be wanting to ask. This is a simulation. It's not a lecture. We are asking some of you to be Prime Minister of Israel, and Hamas leader, and a PA leader. These are facts that we want you to accept, that the Prime Minister of Israel represents Israelis only, that the Palestinian leader represents Palestinians only. We are asking you, for purposes of this simulation, is to assume that today we finished an election and we allowed 14 million people, excluding minors, to vote, meaning in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza, that 5 million people did vote, that 3 million Palestinian voted, and 2 million Israeli voted. By the way, I did check to see how is that compared to the recent Israeli election. In the recent Israeli election, we had a total of 9,136,000 in the population. Eligible voters is 6,453,000, and 4,612,000 actually voted. We are asking you to assume that for the common government, 5 million people voted, 3 million Palestinian voted, and 2 million Israeli voted. That 300 parliament members were elected, that 1.5 million people voted for me, Joseph, as the president, so that it's clear I do not ever intend to be the president because I'm not even eligible and I don't live in the area. And the vice president received 1.3 million. She is a Palestinian lady. We will rotate in 2 years, and each parliament member represent 47,000 people. Does anyone have any questions regarding those assumptions? Is anyone challenging those assumptions? Please speak up now and ask me those questions. Questions? Can I hear any questions? Is Igal here yet? No.
No,
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, hi, Jay.
Yes, this is again regarding the Haredi community. Do I understand correctly that generally speaking, the very Orthodox community does not vote? Is that true?
I think they do vote. The only group that does not vote is Neturei Karta, and they are a small minority, and they are denying they do not accept the existence of Israel as a Jewish state.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question,
Yeah, hi, say.
Joseph. Good morning, everyone. Regarding the Palestinian Arabs who live in 1948 land, they live in Haifa, Yafa. Where you put these group, the 20% of Palestinian Arab who lives inside, are they going to be part of where? Or they could choose whatever part they're going to be in?
There are two issues here. One is voters, and the other is parliament and president. As far as voters, it doesn't really matter. They don't have to identify themselves as Israeli or Palestinians because they're just voting. All they have to show is that they are eligible to vote, either as Israeli or Palestinian citizens and resident of Israel and Palestine. As far as the candidate themselves, if you are a candidate, you have to announce your candidacy as either Israeli or Palestinian based on the Constitution. You have to say, I am a Palestinian or I am Israeli, and then you will be elected based on your representation of who you are, or if you misrepresent your citizenship, you may be eligible for impeachment later on. So you have to be honest about your representation. Any other?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, hi there.
Hi. Does it matter where you live to nominate yourself? For example, if you live in Haifa, could you be to nominate yourself to be in Hebron?
Yeah, if you live in Haifa, you cannot represent Hebron. You have
to live there.
You have to be in order to be a parliament member from Haifa, you have to reside in Haifa. Yes.
Okay.
But you can run for president.
Right.
For the whole nation.
Sorry, another question. If you don't live in Israel or the West Bank or Gaza, can you vote?
No, if you do not reside in or a citizen of Israel, you need to be both citizen and a resident. So you may be asking me about the Palestinian refugees. Those that do not live in Israel, Palestine are not eligible to vote. This is not a Palestinian government. This is a common government.
Okay, I'm sorry, is this open for question in general or just about the assumptions?
Just about the assumptions at this time.
Okay, sorry, one other last question. I didn't hear anything about the refugees coming back. Is that
guys, can you someone okay, go ahead. Tariq?
Tariq was asking about the refugees. I think we answered this before.
Yeah, I'm sorry if you've addressed it before, but the question is, does does the assumption include the refugees coming back, or this is a different subject, or how does that
The
relate?
assumptions have only to do with the election. Whether the refugees are coming back or not would be a question for the parliament to take up and vote upon, and it will be subject to a veto by the Israeli and the Palestinian government.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. I believe the assumptions are achievable with a relatively special, with a small financial commitment. I believe that, you know, 1 day of war between Israel and Gaza is $100 million a day, 1 day. There could be a war tomorrow, $100 million is spent automatically. $100 million, 1 day of war between Gaza and Israel could make this a reality.
Joseph, just a second. Did you say that Israel can veto a decision by the Palestinian parliament to allow refugees to come back to the Palestinian area?
Yes, based on the,
Then the complete thing will collapse.
I'm sorry?
The complete idea will collapse.
Okay, well,
If the Palestinians cannot make a
look,
decision.
this is not the time for comments, okay? Questions. Just questions, okay? So at this time, we are asking the people to volunteer to act as either Israeli prime minister, a PA leader, and a Hamas leader. I already have, so that you know, those who volunteers have to assume the personality of the Israeli prime minister, have to assume the personality of the PA leader and Hamas leader. So you, for the purposes of the simulation, you have to think like them.
Excuse me, I just, sorry, can I make a clarification? The gentleman
Yes.
that just spoke, I'm not sure, but he said that I just want to make sure we all understand each other. He said that if the Palestinians vote for the refugees' return, and Israel has a right to veto that, and you said yes, but I think the vote is actually of the Israel-Palestine Confederation, not just the Palestinian. Am I
Correct.
correct? I'm
Yeah.
correct. Okay.
All right, so and we do have legislation on that, not today, maybe next time. Okay, so we are, we already have volunteers. I need a volunteer for Israeli prime minister. Do I have a volunteer for Israeli prime minister? Is anyone willing to be the Israeli prime minister in this simulation? In this simulation?
I'll do it if no one else wants to.
Okay. Okay, and so you have to assume the personality of Benjamin Netanyahu.
Oh, my favorite job.
Okay, which is totally opposite your personality, but you'll have to assume the personality of Benjamin Netanyahu. I think that Nasir agreed to be the PA leader, correct? Nasir?
No, that wasn't me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Saeed, not Nasir.
Saeed, I'm sorry. Saeed, you agreed to be the PA leader.
Correct.
And Tarek, you agreed to be the Hamas leader. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you have to assume their personality. We understand that it could be different from your own personality, but we have to do the simulation in such a way that their personality will, their political consideration, not really their personal personality, their political consideration. You have to take into consideration their political consideration. So you have, Charles, you have to accept, to take into consideration Netanyahu's political considerations. Saeed, you have to, and Tarek, you have to take into consideration the Palestinian leadership political consideration. You really have to consider their issues, whether to vote to veto the legislation, and you can only veto. You cannot vote. You are only allowed to veto, but you cannot vote. Okay, the rest of you, I will ask to be the parliament members. Parliament members in Israel or Palestine. I have a map of the area that will help you decide what district you represent in either Israel or in Palestine. And we will ask you to assume the personality of the parliament member in that district. Your job is to benefit your district. You are no longer who you personally is, but you are, if you're, let's say you are represent Gaza, you have to say, well, what is my, how am I helping the people in Gaza when I vote? If you represent Tel Aviv, how am I helping the people in Tel Aviv when I vote, et cetera, et cetera. So let's take a test and I'll ask, let's see how many parliament members we have. Let's have the Palestinian parliament members. Please vote first, Palestinian parliament members. Just vote yes. Okay, publish the vote. We have 15 Palestinian parliament members. And let's have Israeli parliament members. Please vote. And publish the vote. We have 8 Israeli. You're the only one allowed to vote. The president of the prime minister of Israel and the PA and Hamas are not allowed to vote, but they're allowed to veto. They're given an opportunity to veto. Okay, this is the first order of business. I'm sorry. The first order of business is to ratify the Constitution. Libby, would you be so kind to read the Constitution?
Sure. We believe that Palestinians and Israelis are entitled to equal rights under the law and guaranteed human rights and freedom. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation does not intend to supersede or supplant the Palestinian or Israeli governments, nor to abrogate or undermine any agreements between those governments. We recognize the need to work with the Israeli and Palestinian governments. Our purpose is to resolve conflicts and to expand the relationship between Palestinians and Israelis in a fair and equitable manner. We believe in equal rights under the law, guaranteed human rights, and freedom for all. We voluntarily give the legislatures and the governments of Israel and Palestine veto power over legislation we pass relating to the domain of control of those governments. We believe in the separation of power between the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. We believe in the creation of a permanent secular government for all the people residing in Israel and Palestine. We believe in having a separate judicial branch relating to IPC legislation with Israeli and Palestinian judges with a system to avoid biased decisions based on nationality.
So in principle, we are the government of the entire area of Israel, but we do not intend to supersede or supplant the Palestinian or the Israeli government, which means we're not here to undermine the Israeli or the Palestinian governments. They can make whatever decision they want on their own, and they can agree to whatever they want between them, including a two-state solution, including a one-state solution. Whatever they want, we do not undermine and we do not supersede. we also are going to give, because we recognize their power. We are going to give them, we are giving them a veto power over legislation that affects their sovereignty, and we decide what is their sovereignty. If it violates their sovereignty, we give them a veto power, and if they do not veto the legislation, then it becomes the law of the land. Does anyone have any questions regarding the Constitution?
I have a question. I have a problem with the, I have a problem with the veto power.
It's not whether you have a problem or not. It's a question. Do you have a question?
Yeah, there is one of the item is saying that,
What is your question?
I'm trying to find out the line that I have a question about.
Okay. You may want to describe it and I'll find it for you.
Well, it talks about the veto.
Oh, okay. We voluntarily give the legislators and the governments of Israel and Palestine veto power over legislation we pass relating to the domain of control of those governments.
That's right.
Yeah.
And this granting of veto power, and here is my question. Won't it be a problem because interfering in the internal affairs of either Palestinian government or Israeli government will cause major problems in the Palestinian government and in the Israeli government?
What is your question, sir?
Can we amend this line to eliminate the veto?
No, because we, in order to get participation of the Israeli and the Palestinian government, and in order to avoid any opposition by them that we are trying to supersede or supplement, that we voluntarily give them a veto power. So if they have a veto power, it gives them a safety net.
Oh, so it only works one way. IPC cannot veto them, they can veto IPC.
Correct.
Thank you.
I have a question.
But go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So if the IPC is the one that decides whether they have a veto power over certain legislation, if we decide which legislation they can veto,
Right.
and that's our decision, not theirs, on legislation that they cannot, that they do not have a right to veto, what goes on from there? How does that get implemented?
Okay, we decide whether to give them a veto power based on one criteria. And that is, can we implement the legislation without them? If we can implement the legislation without them, we don't need to give them a veto power. However, if we need their participation in us implementing the legislation, we recognize their power, and therefore we give them a veto power. But there are several legislations that have to do with our internal operations, such as our budget, such as our whether to impeach the president or the vice president or any of the parliament. Those, we do not give them a veto power. They are internally to us.
But but this depends on them actually recognizing the IPC to begin with, for them to veto or not to veto.
No, we do not ask for their recognition. We ask for them to, we are creating the IPC whether or not they recognize us. And we pass the legislation and then we present it to them. We are not asking for their recognition. We are the only government that is legitimate in that area. The Israeli government is not elected by the entire people of Israel, the West Bank and Gaza. The Hamas or the PA are not elected by the entire people. We are the only government that offered the opportunity to all the people in Israel, the West Bank and Gaza to vote. And we have legislators from all over the entire area. And therefore we are the only legitimate government.
I think my point is that if we're giving somebody that doesn't recognize the IPC the right to veto, and they don't use it because they don't recognize the IPC, well, how does that get implemented? If you think that, if we believe that we are voting on legislation that affects either the Israeli or the Palestinian governments, and they do not recognize the IPC, I don't think they would give it the time of day to even veto legislation. What happens in the case where they do not veto the legislation that they have a right to veto? How does that get implemented?
Basically, you're asking, what if they ignore us?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Well, if they ignore us, they, just like in any democracy, if they ignore us, they have to pay their political consequences, which we will make sure they pay because we are elected. Remember, I am now the president of the common government. I was elected by 1.5 million votes, more than any of the prime minister of Israel or the Hamas. If they choose to ignore us, then I am able to go worldwide and inside Israel and Palestine and say, hey, that we reached an agreement and your government is refusing to accept reasonable agreement that was reached by a parliament members from Israel and Palestine.
Okay, yeah, okay. Thanks for that clarification.
I have
Sure.
a question, Joseph.
Yes.
This constitution that you have and you're showing us, where is the role of the PLO representative and the Hamas representative to write it? Like, who write it as IPC?
Who wrote the Constitution?
Yes. And what is the role of the PLO or PA and the Hamas representative in this in the IPA?
The Constitution itself does not name the type of government. We say we voluntarily give the legislator and the governments of Israel and Palestine in a general sense. We do not say it's what government. We are the one who decide which governments we want to give their veto power to.
No, I am talking about our IPC, whatever you read right now, as common government. We are presenting this to the people of Israel and Palestine. Us, who wrote these constitution? Like, do you come to me as a Palestinian and tell me, do you agree in this one as a common government? That because I am with you in the common government, and we are presenting this to the both nation, to the both people, to decide what they're gonna do. So, what is my role in writing these constitutions?
This constitution was written. It was a evolution over years of consultation with Palestinians and Israelis, and having many meetings and simulations, and it is still an evolving process. Any other questions?
Yes, I had my hand up, Joseph.
Yeah, hi, Jay.
If one or the other independent governments, meaning either the Israelis or the West Bank, does something that directly impacts the other, think of settlements for a moment. Israel decides to do something on settlements in the West Bank. We all know the background, the history of that, and the potential. What influence or ability does the IPC have to in any way either constrain and particularly constrain one party from doing something that is very negative to the other side.
That has nothing to do with the specific constitution. You are asking me what legislation could they pass that would protect one side over another, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Well, that has to do with the specific issue. Settlements, whatever issue, we have to come up with legislation that both sides will have to accept, and the public in both sides will have to accept. We have to thread the needle.
I would suggest that you consider an additional point to the Constitution to be considered later to deal with this, let's call cross-border problems, whether it's intifada issues inside Israel or etc. But one side's going to do what they want to do under their own government, and the whole point of the Constitution and IPC is to degrade the conflict, to settle the conflicts. There needs to be some kind of either penalties or prevention measures on assaults and attacks, etc. So to guarantee security both sides.
Well, that has to do with specific legislation. It's not with the Constitution doesn't usually punish one side over another. Constitution usually is a document that is aspirational. It is it has the long view, it's not designed to punish one side or another.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Please ask question about the Constitution.
I do.
Yeah, hi, Tarek.
Hi. I see here that it doesn't address any of the military or any veto power on military status quo or demilitarization of one fact or the other. Is that also up to a vote in the parliament in case one party wants to empower their military, or is there going to be a demilitarized one, or what is the military role in all of this?
It's similar to what Jay asked me. We are basically trying to demonstrate the vision of peace for the people of Israel and Palestine for the long run. Specific issues will be handled by the parliament if possible, not always, but if possible, in order to create a mechanism that neither the Israeli nor the Palestinian governments could say no to. That we cannot really anticipate each and every specific issue. We are just trying to create a constitution that is visionary for everyone. Okay, hearing no more questions, let's take a vote on the Constitution.
Susan had her hand up.
Oh,
There
I'm
was
sorry.
another hand.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to clarify regarding the judicial branch that
Yes.
that's just internal to the IPC, and that has nothing to do with rulings related to either Israeli or Palestinian governments. It's just within the IPC.
Correct. It says we believe in having a separate judicial branch relating to IPC legislation with Israeli and Palestinian judges. So let's say the IPC passes legislation that requires the arrest of Israelis or Palestinians who commit hate crimes. The IPC judges will have jurisdiction over that because the IPC legislation passed legislation against hate crime. It passed theoretically, just 55% of the Israeli parliament members and 55% of the Palestinian parliament members. And in addition, it sustained, there was no veto by the Israeli or the Palestinian government. Therefore, it is the law of the land, and as the judicial branch, we can legislate, we can prosecute violators of the hate crime. Yes. Just like in the federal government in the United States has specific laws. And those laws are passed by Congress and by the Senate, and they are they have the ability to prosecute federal issues. Now, the difference between the federal government in the United States and here is that the federal government in the United States is superior to the state. But in here, the common government is below the Israeli and the Palestinian government because they have a veto power. Any other questions? Okay, let's take a vote. Palestinian parliament members, please ratify the Constitution. Okay, we have 15, so I see only 13 voted. One more. Okay, 14, I'm not going to wait for the last one, but
Well, the president cannot vote, right?
no, he cannot. Yes, okay. So stop sharing. 100% of the Palestinian parliament members voted yes. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Please vote. Okay, 8 voted yes. So stop sharing. We have 100% of the Israeli parliament members voted, 100% of the Palestinian parliament members voted. So congratulations. For the first time in history of the area, we passed the Constitution for the people of Israel and Palestine together. And it's a momentous occasion in the history of humanity. The Israeli government does not have a reason to object. The Palestinian and the Israelis are not a monolithic system. They don't have a legal reason to object or moral, and may lose legitimacy if they try to object, and they never tried to object before. We actually had this election on December 12, 2012, and we actually had a full-page ad in the New York Times, not simulated, but real. And a full-page ad appeared on October of 2012. The Israeli government or the Palestinian government did not try to object. We did have the election, and the election where very, very few people voted, and that's why it didn't really get off the ground. All right, our next issue is granting a veto power to the separate government. Libby, could you please read the legislation that we are now passing?
The Confederation is the government of the entire population of Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. We hereby bestow a veto power relating to legislation affecting sovereignty to the following: the government of Israel, the Palestinian Authority, Hamas. In the event of changes in governments, this legislation may be amended or repealed.
All right, so here we are. This is not the Constitution. We already have a government. We already have a parliament. We have a president. And we are now presenting to the parliament the first issue to decide who we're going to give a veto power to. And I am the president. I am suggesting we give it to the Israeli government, the Palestinian Authority, and Hamas. Does anyone have any questions regarding this legislation? And by the way,
will the Palestinian
governments
government
do not have a veto over it.
Will the Palestinian government agree that Hamas is a separate entity?
We don't know, and it's not relevant to this legislation.
I have an issue with the language.
Issue or question?
Well, I have an issue with the language of this. If we're
Okay.
gonna we're going to vote on this. It says the Confederation is the government of the entire population of Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza.
Correct.
And Palestine is not mentioned there. So I would rather it say the entire population of Israel and Palestine. Myself.
Okay.
That's you know, because the West Bank is the West Bank of what? It's the West Bank of Jordan. And so you
Okay.
know, it's all
All right.
relative.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I will change that. It's just that the reason that I put it in is because actually to make sure that people understand that it includes the West Bank and Gaza. So I will,
I understand it. No, I understand it. And that
Yeah.
even I could stay there, but I you know,
yeah, okay, that's a very reasonable comment. Okay,
You could hyphenate the word West Bank / Palestine if you, to clarify also.
okay, I'll find a way. I don't like to think of when I am doing the simulation itself. All right, any other questions, comments? Hearing no questions, let's take a vote. Palestinian parliament members, please vote. Do you support a declaration of intent to grant the veto power? Palestinian parliament members. Okay, let's publish the vote. 73% voted in favor. 73% of the Palestinian parliament members voted in favor. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Please vote. Israeli parliament members. Okay, publish the vote. Okay, 100% of the Israeli parliament members. So this is just to show you that the Israeli and the Palestinian people are not a monolithic society. You can have some within the Palestinians on this issue in this particular case. All right.
Sorry, Joseph, a fast point here. You're taking into consideration that 2 Palestinians cannot vote, right? Because they're presidents.
Right. You are not allowed to vote.
Yeah, but you're taking that in consideration of the percentages for the math reasons.
No, I am not. I am just looking at the Zoom calculates the percentage for me.
Okay, because if you add those 2, it might be a higher percentage. That's all I'm saying. All right, we can proceed.
Yeah, okay. So just to clarify, the Hamas leader, the PA leader, Israeli government leader, you're not allowed to vote. We are deciding whether or not to give you a veto power. We decided to give you a veto power over legislation that affecting sovereignty to your governments. If it doesn't affect your sovereignty, you have no veto power. All right. Let's go to the first legislation. In time, you do have a veto power. That is converting Kalandia. Libby, would you be so kind as to read that legislation?
All right, this is about converting Kalandia checkpoint into an education and commerce center. So located on the main road between Ramallah and Jerusalem. Convert the checkpoint into an education and commerce center. Construction of state-of-the-art hospital. Reduce unnecessary hardship and congestion at the checkpoint without increasing security risk. Convert the entire area into an education and commercial zone. Expansion of the number of entrances and exits. Fast lane for frequent travelers. Managed by the Confederation Police Force. And we hereby submit this legislation to the Israeli government, the Palestinian government, and Hamas. And we bestow upon them a veto power, which may be exercised in the next 60 days.
Okay, I see already question. Nasir, you have a question?
Yes, I have a question that how would any Palestinian still accept any checkpoint roadblock that is between two Palestinian cities. For me, it's like almost
Question.
obscene.
That's not a question, that's a
No,
comment.
I'm asking because Palestinians here tend to, the people who call themselves Palestinian representatives, I don't know if they're thinking like Palestinians. Because I'm just saying can we be?
Nasir, this is not a question. You're just
Well, I'm
arguing.
asking you a question. How can Palestinians, delegates or representatives say, we're going to vote for something that's going to continue a roadblock that separates Palestinian towns? That's my question. How should they be
Okay, so,
expected?
your question is, why is this not legislation to remove the checkpoints altogether, correct?
Yes, and it's actually saying we're going to continue checkpoints, which is
Right,
absurd.
Right. And it's because we are a common government. We want to pass legislation that neither side can object to. We are not here to pass legislation that is perfect. So I said at the beginning, when you judge the legislation, judge it based on the alternative, not based on perfection. Your argument is why not have perfection? And the reason is because perfection will not work. The Israeli government will not agree to have the removal of the checkpoint.
Well, they should build it in their cities, not in our cities, between our cities. Build
Okay,
it in between their cities.
we're not the Israeli government. We're not the Israeli government.
Yeah, but we're sitting here at this, in a sense, this is kind of endorsing the occupation. It's endorsing a checkpoint that is between two cities. If you know where this checkpoint is, it separates the cities of Beit Hanina,
It is not,
Kalandia, and from
it is not endorsing
It
it.
doesn't separate any Israeli city from a Palestinian city. It is
Okay,
between
look.
two Palestinian cities. So I just want
Nasir,
people to realize that when they vote. That's all
Yeah,
I'm saying. I
okay,
want them to
all right,
realize that because
okay.
maybe they don't know the reality on the ground. I want them to realize that when they vote.
Okay.
May I make a comment?
Well, hold on a second. Nasir, what are you a Palestinian parliament member?
Yes, I am, but I'm just want to
Wait,
make sure because I
did you
feel-
did you vote for the Constitution?
I did vote for the Constitution.
Okay, and
But-
what area do
but
you
again,
represent? What
Jerusalem.
area?
I am from Jerusalem. I live actually 5 minutes away from the Kalandia checkpoint.
Okay, so you are from Jerusalem
Yes.
and so,
And my city is actually divided by the checkpoint. And this
Okay.
is why I am strongly opposed to it. But
Okay,
I want
all
the
right.
people
So
here
if,
who vote
okay,
for, I just want the Palestinians here who vote to know that when they vote for this, they are continuing the division of a Palestinian city and families that are being torn apart from each other, including my own family.
okay.
I agree.
What is the alternative if this legislation does not?
The alternative is either you remove it and let families be reunited again.
How
their
do you
cities be
propose?
reunited.
How do you propose?
If
to
Israelis
remove it?
want to live around a wall, then build the wall around
Well,
their city.
look,
It's not
look,
ours.
how do you propose to remove it?
The same way it was built, it should be torn down.
By whom?
Whoever built it.
Okay, so I'm responding to your objection and I am saying you have no proposal.
My proposal is to remove it
Whatsoever.
and let people build a wall on where their cities are, not where other people's cities are. That's my proposal.
Okay, so when you vote, so I want to tell the parliament members, my parliament members, that if you vote with no on this legislation, the reality is going to stay the way it is, right?
I'd rather it
It's
stay
not-
the way it is than endorse it and continue it and give it legitimacy.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, okay. Shlomo,
Yeah, maybe we should put somewhere there. He has a point. So let us put somewhere there that we object any separation, physical separation between the people which is against their will. Something very general along this line, and that will
Okay.
include those checkpoints.
No, my point is not to change
Nasir,
it.
would
My
that
point is to
satisfy you?
My point is not to change it. My point is that we have people here who are saying they're members of the Palestinian side of the parliament, and they should be aware that when they are voting this, that Palestinians, this is how they feel. This is the reality on the ground. So my hope is to get people to vote no for it until we have a proposal that is acceptable to Palestinians on the ground.
Okay. Any
Yeah.
other-
Brother, if you allowed me here, 2 weeks ago, they spoke about the same thing between Gaza and the Zionist territory, and they said they want to build Disneyland. I oppose to it because I understand Disneyland is not going to fix the problem right now between bringing an Israelis kids and Palestinian kids. What I'm saying, I feel where you're coming from, and I understand. I agree 100% that this has to be completely wiped out of our cities and territories.
Okay. Let's take a vote. Palestinian Parliament members, do you support this legislation?
You have two other people, Tony and
Okay,
Falco.
sorry. Okay. Let's cancel the vote and have the two other people ask questions.
Yeah, this is Tony. So I think I hear the point he's making, which is it's symbolically still an Israeli checkpoint for a one-way check, basically, to keep Palestinians out of Israel. So he's suggesting if Israelis want a checkpoint on their side, that's fine. But I'm kind of suggesting, given the sovereignty issues and mistrust on both sides, perhaps there should be a checkpoint on both sides, and the Palestinians would have a checkpoint for Israelis as well.
That's really what it says.
Okay. Well, that's a good clarity. I'm not sure if that was clear for me anyway.
It says expansion of the number of entrances and exits. It doesn't really specifically says that, but if it extends, that's really the meaning of it. Any other questions?
Yeah, Giacomo.
Yeah, you.
I have my comment would be that objecting to what our Palestinian friends said earlier, the whole point of promoting an education and commerce center at a checkpoint is precisely to show everybody that there are as an alternative vision for relations between Palestinians and Israelis. So it's not a question of bringing down the checkpoint, it's showing the world and Israelis and Palestinians that there's a different way of coexisting. So I think this is a different concept here, a different point, and I think that's why it's worth for everybody to consider it.
Good point. Yeah. Any other?
Yes, I suggest to take off the whole thing with checkpoints, because it is, as you see, it is controversial. It is a problem. They view all of these points as basically a fence around a concentration camp. So you can talk about concentration camp and say, yeah, by the way, instead of this fence, we will put something else very nice and cheerful. No, it should not exist. And this must be a foundation of what we are doing here. That's my.
Okay.
Yeah, as I have a comment, Joseph.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually, I agree 100%. This is very offensive because the whole spirit of this is to eliminate borders and become equals. And the second you mentioned the word checkpoint on one side, you're dehumanizing the Palestinian people again. So it's very offensive. So I agree 100%. I would vote for a different resolution that simply says eliminate all checkpoints.
Okay, but you are a Hamas leader at this point.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Are you going? Okay. Any other comments?
For the gentleman who said we need to show the world about us, I think we need to show ourselves first, because these checkpoints, I agree with the brother from Beit Hanina or from Jerusalem, bring a bad memory and extremely bad images for the Palestinian themselves. So I do understand this is very humiliating, and for us to come with something else, we need to find a different ground, different location where we can talk to the world in a different level, not bringing memory and bad memory to the Palestinians. Thank you.
Okay, now as the
Yes, I would add, sorry, Joseph, I would add that we should respect what our Palestinian friends are saying, 100%. Okay, the two Palestinian friends that have spoken, I respect what they say, and I will not vote for this. Okay.
Well, absolutely, we should respect, but I am saying there has to be an alternative presented. What they are saying, those
wipe it.
objecting do not offer an alternative. What they are offering is the continuation of the checkpoint.
For the moment, we must bear in mind their humiliation and also their sensitivities and come up with something else that they might suggest.
Okay, please.
Joseph, I came up with the idea of eliminating all the checkpoints. That's an alternative.
Wipe it
Yeah,
out.
but,
completely
okay,
out.
but let me ask the Prime Minister, okay. Do you really think that if we have legislation to eliminate all checkpoints, that the Israeli parliament members, you will be able to agree 50% of the Israeli parliament members?
Sorry,
We're not favoring the Israel's parliament member. We are favoring the right.
I know,
the right
but you're also favoring the Palestinian. You can make.
No, we're not favoring the Palestinian by removing a made block that was created by one of the previous prime minister, and it created suffering for the Palestinians and stop Palestinians from going to their farms and going to their next door cousins.
All right.
This is not favor of the Palestinians.
Let's take a vote.
Can I just say one thing?
Hi,
is there something in the Constitution that says that the IPC should abide by international law? By international law. As this checkpoint is actually illegal under international law. So to to advocate for its removal, to have legislation against its removal is just abiding by international law. This is not, so I don't understand.
Let me ask you this. What line are you objecting to in this legislation?
What line? I mean, to the actual title, honestly, converting Kalandia checkpoint into an education and commerce center.
Well,
it's
specifically
illegal under international.
What are you objecting to? You
specifically-
deny that there is a checkpoint?
No, I'm saying that checkpoint is illegal under international law.
I know,
And
but
you're
what
asking-
line are you?
Reduce.
Allowed to? Are we
line-
not allowed to?
You're asking for an
mention
alternative.
that word?
You're
Is that
asking
what
for.
you're-
No, it
No, I'm
says
saying-
reduce unnecessary hardship and congestion at the checkpoint without increased security risk. That line should be gone because there should be no checkpoint. If the Israelis cities want checkpoints, build them. The alternative is build them around your own city. My backyard, I have a fence.
Okay.
If I
All
build
right.
it in my neighbor's kitchen and then cut him off from his kitchen and tell him he has to come through a checkpoint to come to his kitchen, that's wrong. No, build the fence on my property
all
line.
right. Actually, when you say reduce unnecessary hardship and congestion, it's not a part of a line that needs to be done. This is the purpose. Okay, this states what's the purpose of it. Okay, it's not saying keep the checkpoint. There's nothing here that says keep the checkpoint.
Well,
Okay. Could I make a clarifying comment, Joseph?
Yeah.
I think where everybody's getting hung up is that they're having a hard time understanding the difference between imagining what we want and why aren't we asking for that, and creating a political movement that's capable of enacting actual change that leads to what we want. Those are two different things. If we are always going to be demanding what it is that is our ideal, we will never be able to find a position of compromise with somebody else who has a different picture. So those two things have to coalesce. And the point is, as the Israeli prime minister, as soon as you pass this thing, I'm going to veto it, because Benjamin Netanyahu is going to say, it's not broken. Why should I fix it? But this is about destabilizing the current entrenched positions of power in a way that can lead to positive change. You're not going to get Israel to agree to remove the checkpoints just because you don't want them there.
All right,
There has to be another approach.
Can I,
let's take a vote and then we'll have more
before you
reality
vote,
to do.
before you vote, can I just say one more thing?
Please,
not-
but
it's-
we need to move forward.
I understand, but this is very important because I see this we go through this every simulation, and I just feel like we're not getting anywhere with this because nothing is changing. It's not just
Not
about the
true.
checkpoint.
We have 100% support for the Confederation. That's what you're saying.
Okay.
But go ahead.
If you want to take a look at the checkpoint, let's look at, for example, somebody mentioned the town of Beit Hanina. Beit Hanina is split into half by this wall and checkpoint. A 3-minute drive from the old part of Beit Hanina to the new part of Beit Hanina used to be 3-4 minutes maximum. Today, we have to go all the way north, almost to Ramallah, around into Kalai. One time it took me literally 2.5 hours. A 3-minute drive now takes 2.5 hours. There's no way you're going to justify a wall or a checkpoint. I don't care.
Okay, look at what this legislation says. Located in the main road between Ramallah and Jerusalem.
But what about the wall that connects the western part
It
of
doesn't say
Jerusalem?
anything about the wall. It says.
What do you need a checkpoint for if there's no wall?
Look, read the legislation. Are
Yeah, but
convert the checkpoint into an education and commerce center.
yeah, but bullet 4 does seem to infer that there is a checkpoint not only for education and commerce, but for security. And so I think that's what's triggering the Palestinians is that doesn't seem to say there's not a security checkpoint anymore.
Okay, let's take a vote. We need to move forward. Palestinian parliament members, please vote.
Somebody needs to stop snoring on the call.
Okay. Okay, please publish the vote. 64% of the Palestinian parliament members voted in favor of this legislation. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Please vote. Publish the vote. 71% of the Israeli parliament members voted in favor of this legislation. Let's go to the Hamas leader. Mr. Hamas leader, are you going to veto this legislation?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go to the PA leader. Are you going to veto this legislation?
Strongly, I veto that.
Okay. Let's go to the Israeli prime minister. Are you going to veto this legislation? Mr. Prime Minister.
You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, acting as Benjamin Netanyahu, I'm saying it's not broken. Why should I fix it?
So all
Yeah,
of you
I
vetoing
veto.
the legislation. Okay. So I come to all of you and I say, each one of you, I'm going to have a private conversation with you. Okay. And I'm going to say to you privately that you are harming. We have parliament members, in both areas that want to end the checkpoints and to turn it into a good way for the Palestinians and the Israelis to be able to move. And if you do not change your veto power over this, then I'm going to campaign against you in the Israeli and in the Palestinian public opinion and worldwide, and to say that what is harming the area is not the people, it's the president of the Hamas, the president of the PA, and the prime minister of Israel. And they are the one who are harming the areas. And we should do whatever we can to change those governments. Now, are you willing to take that chance, or are you willing to change that from a veto to remove your veto?
Isn't this really an opportunity for some dialogue to understand the underlying concerns of the people that are opposing it?
Yeah, but look, I don't really have time to have a lot of conversation. I'm just trying to demonstrate how a common government could make peace. It's not really. I'm trying to show the options that a common government has.
If you allowed me, Joseph, as a PLO leader, and I want to represent my people based of freedom, equal right, and have access to their ancient land every time, anytime, anywhere they want to go. These legislations favor the occupation more than favoring the vision of freedom and equal level between them.
Wait, Mr. Leader. People in your district, in the West Bank, already agreed that they want to remove the checkpoints, and they already want to convert it into an education and commerce center. You're working against the people in your own area. You're working against the Palestinian people who elected me in a legitimate way. You are not even a legitimate president. You haven't been elected in many, many years. We gave you the power to veto out of respect, but you don't really have a legitimacy. And so is the PA, the Hamas leader. Think about it.
Correct, but as a person, as a
and by the way,
Palestinian,
let me talk to the Israeli Prime Minister too. You have a very fragile coalition, and I will work to destroy your coalition because you're harming the people of Israel who voted for this legislation.
Yeah, but I'll lose my support in the right wing if I went for this. They would go nuts. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
I understand.
You will lose them anyway, and you will lose your primaryship.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can see why.
I'm going to expose you worldwide. You're not a man of peace.
I can see that this will help unify the center and the Arab parties inside Israel against me, but judging from my historical record on how I look at these things, I think it would be too far of a departure from what I have considered my base to go for this, and I would probably take the risk of being thrown out as opposed to losing that base of support that I currently have.
All right, let's go to Walter and then we move, because I'm not here to squeeze your arm.
Mr. President, I
think
also have, as the president of Hamas, I do have a point to address.
Yes.
If I may.
Sure.
The clause 1 of our constitution needs to be read again and taken in consideration before you do any proposals.
Which constitution?
Our constitution.
Read.
No, our IPC. Read it.
You're the president of Hamas.
Yes, I know, but we are all part of aren't we all part of this confederation?
All the people in Israel and Palestine. When you say our, you
mean us.
IPC constitution.
Yes.
Okay.
Read the first line.
We believe that Israelis are entitled to equal rights under the law and guaranteed human rights and freedom. Yes.
Okay, so what you just suggested completely contradicts that, because you're saying you are legitimizing and giving approval to the word checkpoint to a people.
No, that's your interpretation.
Read number 4. What does it say?
Well, Tariq, we believe. There's a difference between what we believe and what we can create. Okay, in terms of trying to get to what we believe, we have to create many steps to get there.
Yeah,
right. But for me to vote on something that approves the word checkpoint is giving legitimacy to a people superior to another people.
We already went through that, and you already vetoed it, and I demonstrated that I can put pressure on everyone who veto it to show that they're on people. But
Joseph, I need to say something. No, Tarek is absolutely right. There is a contradiction here. So I'm sorry, but there is. I mean, checkpoint is not only illegal internationally, but is also against the first rule of the Constitution. Either there is equality or not. And the checkpoint actually is the symbol of huge inequality. So if we agree to a checkpoint, then something is inconsistent.
But we already passed, we already had voted on this.
That's my point, Joseph. My point is that we have voted as parliament members. So
Right.
we shouldn't have vetoes after voting it as a parliament.
We shouldn't, but in order to get the cooperation of the Israeli and the Palestinian government, we have to give them veto. Otherwise, they're not going to cooperate.
I think we have to,
Necessity.
I think we have to, I mean, isn't there a process where we discuss what legislation that we present, you know, that we allow them to have a veto power on? I mean,
Yes.
especially but we didn't really have that process. We said this was here's the
We
legislation.
did in the Constitution.
No. But the problem is that this checkpoint is on illegally occupied land. So to allow that illegally occupying power to have a veto on that.
Nadir, do you think that just because the IPC passes something that says the
Wait,
checkpoints are,
this is over. We are going to the next, we have other business to do.
okay,
Common police force.
This is a dictatorship.
it's a question of power.
Let's have Libby, could you please read the legislation regarding common police force?
Equal number of Israeli and Palestinians at each level. Distinct uniforms for the common police force different from the Israeli or Palestinian police force. Independent of the Israeli and Palestinian security forces. In cooperation with the separate Israeli and Palestinian authorities. Address sensitive religious, cultural, and language requirements. Facilitate the operation of the joint economic zones. Investigate corruption by administrators who refused to teach tolerance. Investigate allegations of intolerance and racist hate crime against Israelis or Palestinians. Assist in managing checkpoints. Guard the Parliament building and threats against members of the Confederation. Facilitate access to and safety of religious facilities. And we hereby submit this legislation to the Israeli government, the Palestinian government, and Hamas, and bestow upon them a veto power which may be exercised in the next 60 days.
Any questions regarding this legislation? I'm going to move a little faster now because there is one more legislation that I want to go.
Yeah,
Same thing, same exact thing. Assist in managing checkpoints.
yeah. I mean, we're going back to this.
Same
Okay.
thing.
All right.
And I have a question.
Vote, Palestinian parliament members, please vote.
I have a question regarding the number, the weapons, transportation, and
Technical
communication.
questions. These are technical questions.
Highly political.
Indian parliament members to vote.
While you're doing that, this allegations of intolerance, no, under teaching tolerance, corruption of administration,
In the polling.
isn't that part of the education ministry and not the police?
This is enforcement. Okay, 55% of the Palestinian parliament members voted in favor of this legislation. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Okay, publish the vote. 6 out of 6 voted in favor, 100% of those who voted. Let's go to the Hamas leader. Mr. Hamas leader, are you going to veto this legislation?
100%.
You are.
Yes.
Okay. And let's go to the PA leader.
Strongly veto.
Okay, and let's go to the Israeli Prime Minister. Are you going to veto this legislation?
Well, considering that the
Doesn't matter
Palestinian,
what they think, just what you think.
considering the Palestinian Authority has just ceased cooperation, so they stated, I would accept this with the idea that I'd be able to corrupt it later. So, yeah, I will not veto it.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to argue with you. Let's go to the next legislation. And that is application to FIFA for acceptance of a mutual soccer team. Libby, could you read the legislation?
The president of the Israeli Palestinian Confederation is seeking authorization from the IPC Parliament, the government of Israel, and the Palestinian governments to apply for FIFA membership for an IPC team to participate in its tournaments, including the World Cup. Should FIFA accept the IPC as the governing body for soccer, the Israeli and Palestinian governments each agreed to respect the IPC team competing within FIFA tournaments as the exclusive and neutral team for Israel and Palestine. The IPC team will compete under the name of the Holy Land and fly the Holy Land flag.
Any questions regarding this proposed request by me to?
What is the Holy Land flag? I don't understand. What is the Holy Land flag? If you can explain to me.
We already showed it and it was voted. Let me see if I have a picture of it. Here. Okay. Any questions? Any other questions?
When was that voted on, that flag?
In previous simulations.
Oh, okay, okay.
It's not my, I asked the person to make a change, but it doesn't matter really.
Doesn't matter, no.
Okay, Sean, what's your question?
With calling it the Holy Land, can you call it Israel/Palestine instead? I don't know.
Didn't
What do
you
you think?
suggest that name, Holy Land?
Like for FIFA to recognize the land, you call it Holy Land. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's see, is the parliament willing to give me the authorization, the parliament? Palestinian parliament members, please vote. I'm asking for your authorization to go to FIFA and demand and ask to be a.
I'm gonna vote yes for this, but but I think before that, there should have been authorization to actually have these two sides practice together to form a team.
I agree because yeah, that's reminded me of Disneyland that day before everything else.
All right, let's publish the vote. 92% voted yes. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Please vote, Israeli parliament members. 70 published the vote. 71% of the Israeli parliament members voted yes. Let's go, Mr. Hamas leader, are you going to authorize me to go to FIFA for that purpose? Mr. Hamas.
As long as I get VIP seats, yes.
You want tickets to the games?
Yeah, there is no veto. No, that's a good thing.
Let's
Finally,
go.
we agree on something.
Okay, let's look. If Israel and if there is a team like that, and Israel passes to a Palestinian, and the Palestinian scores a goal, that's the end of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in my mind. let's have the PA leader. Are you gonna allow me to, are you gonna vote? Are you gonna veto this?
I will veto this because I think there is more important things than a soccer team. And instead of us worry about the soccer team, we have more stuff that we need to establish within the two society before we go internationally. So I veto that.
So you will not allow me to?
No.
Okay, what about the Israeli?
Would this supersede the Israeli team?
Yes.
I mean,
You would not have an Israeli team.
oh gee, well, I'm really like, I'm really
Yeah,
big
but
on.
your team didn't make it to the soccer World Cup
Oh,
years.
okay, well,
Your team is a losing team for years.
well, okay, yeah, maybe I'll allow this then.
Okay, so we may only
Question,
be doing it with.
why was there a veto power given for this anyway?
No, there is no veto. We are asking for authorization. There, it's not a legislation. I am the president. I want to go to FIFA and apply on behalf of Israel Palestine to be a team for Israel Palestine.
But do you need the okay of either side for this?
Of course, because I want players. I want to
But
have.
you represent, we just got voted in by Palestinians and Israelis together and the IPC, and we could form a soccer team with or without the PA or Israel. Why not? I
Yeah,
don't
but then
understand.
Israel can send its own team.
Oh.
Let them, we'll defeat them on the field.
Let them, they won't even make it there. They won't make it there.
Well,
Look,
that
the
would be
Israelis won't let
embarrassing.
The Palestinian team out. The Israelis will not let the Palestinian team out to play anyways. And the Israelis don't make it there anyways. So it's just I don't even know why we need their consent for any of this.
Okay, so you're saying we can do it without them?
Absolutely. You're playing soccer.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's do a post-simulation survey. After participating in the simulation, do you support a common government for the people of Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza that will coexist with the Israeli and the Palestinian government? We need more votes.
I'm saying yes under the assumption that, as I said before, that the word Palestine needs to be in there.
Yeah. Okay, there were a lot more people. So at the beginning, we had, I believe, 29. So can we get more votes? Or maybe there are 34 participants, so I need more votes, more people to vote.
Maybe they assume that it's only the Palestinians, not everybody.
This is for everyone. This is for everyone. Palestinians and Israelis, please vote together. This is for everyone, not Israelis, not Palestinian, everyone. This is a survey question. Okay, publish the vote. 20 out of 20, 100% voted yes. Just out of curiosity, can we do a vote to see are you against it? Because Dan, can you do the vote and see, do we have people against it? Okay. Share the results. No one is against it. Okay. So I'm asking for you if you can help record a video that says, I support a common government for Israel and Palestine. If you can give me, say your name and whether you support or not. No, whether you support, not, just whether you support a common government. A lot of you participated. We are creating very nice videos. Let me stop sharing And if you have some of you that are willing to record a video that says that you support.
If I did it before, is it still do it today?
Yeah, you can still do it today. Yes, absolutely.
Joseph, I have a question.
Yes.
Has a confederation similar to this ever existed before?
Not to my knowledge.
Anyone on the group know of any parallels to what we're proposing here?
Well, wasn't there the evolution of how basically Switzerland and New Zealand, how their governments have evolved? Switzerland is particular, I think.
Look, the general idea of a common government is in the United States has a common government with 50 states with 330 million people, okay? So it's not a unusual idea. That it is created during the conflict, 75 years after the conflict, it doesn't give power to the common government. So that's the only difference.
Well, there's also, one could see some parallels with the European Parliament, because the European Parliament was first created more or less like a talk shop, and every decision that was taken had to be completely approved with by all the EU countries and so on. And in the end now, over time, confidence was built and so on. And in the 1970s, the European Parliament was given some level of decision-making. And in the 80s, it got to decide things by majority voting and could impose its views on the EU countries. So that is a gradual approach. And that is a little bit what I see as could be achieved with an IPC parliament.
All right, but going back, we need to record a video. If someone is willing to record a video, say your name and whether you, like I, Joseph Avasar, support a common government for the people of Israel. If you can.
I will do that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you clarify, Joseph, how do we do that? Do we just do our own video and submit it?
No.
Or,
No, you just do it on this Zoom, and we extract that from the Zoom and we create a video.
Oh, okay. So to clarify, the 30 people on this on this simulation, just say I support the confederation between the Palestinians and Israelis, correct?
Your name, I support a common government for the people of Israel and Palestine. I participated in the simulation. I think it's going in the right direction. I want peace between Israelis and Palestinians. It's time to make whatever you want to make. Say, but
okay.
Your
okay,
name
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay. Go ahead.
I, Tariq Rishak, support the creation of a Palestinian-Israeli confederation with equal rights to everybody.
To make peace?
Of course, to make peace.
Okay. And you participated in the simulation?
And today we participated in a simulation and it went very well.
Thank you. Anybody else is willing to? Saeed, I'm sorry. Saeed?
Yes, I'm Saeed Aziz. I support a common government between Israel and Palestine. I participated in the simulation and it's going in the right direction.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll do it again.
Yeah.
My name is Charles Fredericks. Today I participated in the simulation of the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation. I believe that this is a good opportunity to make peace, and I support the endeavor fully.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I could do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I am Giacomo Valentini, and I support a common government for the people of Israel and Palestine. I believe the IPC and its parliament could make a real difference in building confidence and bringing some sanity to the conflict which is currently underway.
Thank you so much. All right, so let's just open for discussion. If anyone has any of the issues that you wanted to raise and or the questions that you have.
So I just want to say that this is my first time, and I really enjoyed this, but I didn't choose to make a video today because I want to clarify, you know, certain things about, you know, I'd like to do it again and see how legislation has come up with, and you know, what flexibility we have in changing some of the terminology and all of this, because so far, while I think it's a great endeavor and I would support it, but I see that there needs to be discussion amongst the parliamentarians to come up with the right legislation so that, you know, we're not arguing about those issues when it's time for a vote. Now, I understand that a lot of legislation has been written in previous simulations, so I'd like to wait a little bit and see a couple more simulations. But thank you. It was a great simulation. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, look, the purpose is not to demonstrate the success of each and every legislation. The purpose is to demonstrate that a common government based on Israelis and Palestinians together could sit together and discuss the issues just like we've done today, but they don't have to do it within an hour, like under pressure. They can do it days after days and reach an agreement.
Absolutely, but part of that process also is being able to debate legislation that can go forward for, you know, a vote and a veto too. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that process.
I think brother Nader has a good point here. And as a Palestinian, I'm Saeed Aziz, and as a Palestinian, I never allowed myself to sit with a Jewish Israeli. I know a lot of Jewish people in America, but a Jewish Israeli I always consider to be an enemy. But since I met Joseph and I have few people around Joseph that I know, it's make me change my ideas about Jewish in general. And, you know, understanding the humanity of Joseph, how hard he's working for bringing good thing for the Palestinian and Israelis together. So it changed me as a person. So I believe this is a good thing to keep going. And if I have 50,000 people following me in social media, I could bring few thousand people just to support this. And I think we are going in the right direction. And as a Palestinian, I am very impressed by your work. And I am a changed person to see different views in this lifetime. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you so much.
Can you tell your Palestinian friends about it? What you think and what you feel and how you've changed?
I do.
Can you tell all your friends as much as possible?
I do.
That's wonderful.
I do. And, you know, me and Joseph are facing a lot of hate comments. They call me, I do have like some kind of planning with Zionists. I'm having like under table plan to bring different.
I know. Terrible, terrible.
If you're going to walk.
Hate campaigns are terrible, awful, I know. We'll continue with what you're doing.
If you believe what you're doing and you are comfortable with people like Joseph, I believe he's a great person. I like his person. We went out a few times. We have great lunches, a great meeting.
He's okay.
I agree with you.
Nasir still
wonderful.
has his hand up. I'm wondering if he wants to
I
make
agree
a
with
comment.
you all.
So I'm telling a lot of people. I'm telling a lot of people, even though it's hard.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Good work.
Nasir still has his hand up. I'm wondering if he wanted to make a comment still.
Yeah, I was gonna propose maybe some constructive criticism about some of the way we do things here. Specifically, like I've attended about 15 of these, 20 of these simulations in the past year or so. I've been around for about a year, right? And they've been, you know, we've had some good talks here and stuff, but to be honest with you, sometimes I find the simulations a little too redundant. Like we show we spend a lot of time on the
I agree.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time on the introduction and then we vote on the same bills. Rather than trying to jam as many proposals or laws, I think we have to, it would be nice, for example, like what we did today, and I know it got a little tense, but that's not a bad thing, because what we could do is we can, I think I said this earlier, but proposing a law and then maybe a Palestinian or an Israeli kind of like saying, like, you know, a 2-minute thing about this is specifically why I would or would not vote for this, because I think that you need that authentic or organic opinion on the law. Like, for example, the checkpoint, because someone who lives in, I don't know, Chicago or something, they might not know exactly what like the Kalandia checkpoint is, but like someone who has a home in Jerusalem between and other family members who are on the other side of the wall, it's going to mean a lot different. So I think we need to do that to give it sort of a little bit more organic element in the voting, and then maybe not be so redundant, so that we can kind of, because some people here, I see them every week or every 2 weeks, I should say. And this way, I think it'd be a little bit more dynamic. That's just my opinion.
Nasir, I agree with you. It is redundant. But the reason it is redundant is because we have new people and we have new speakers. And also, we have to go through the Constitution and we have to go through some of the ground rules, because if we start with legislation, people will not understand how did we come to that point. So
I don't think I'm not necessarily saying that we shouldn't do any introduction. I just think that it could be like, bam, here it is. This is our Constitution. And then let's move right into legislation. This is just my opinion.
That's what okay, let's go.
I have a thought. I have an idea for you. Maybe if you have another separate session for people that have been in the simulation, like a floor session where they can, discuss issues that come up. It would be more work. It would be, but it would be with people that have been through the simulation before.
Yeah, the problem with that is it's hard to get people to come in and to have 2 sessions. It makes it much harder. I mean, I literally worked 2 weeks sending in hard with the speaker and all of that. So to have 2 sessions, it's, if we had the luxury, I would do it every weekend, but it's very, very difficult.
As I told you, Joseph, we met Atak. I don't know if Nader and Tariq agree with me. When I came to America in the 90s, beginning of the 90s, there was 2 sources of Palestinian power. One, you go to the mosque, then you go to the university. We need to start putting things together where we can go and speak to people one-to-one and bring a new generation and new people from university campus between Israelis, Palestinians together. So you can bring more new blood, more new generation to interact with this. And I think it's not just going to be in Zoom calls, it's going to be in actual.
Absolutely. Okay, next is Tariq, then Jay, then Don.
Yes, first of all, let's really, really appreciate what you're doing, Joseph, and not to be taken lightly at all. I mean, I'm sure you have better things to do and weeks of preparation, and I apologize for not attending the last one, although I promised. And I know you made me realize that, but I want to, but I'm really
That's one of my techniques to make people guilty.
But I'm really glad I joined, and everybody on both sides on this conversation. I really, really appreciate your hard work supporting Palestinian rights. But again, constructive criticism. It's just to be mindful that every word you use in your propositions could trigger some feelings of anger towards us. And you start by saying equal rights, and then you mention occupation tools that are very offensive to all of us Palestinians, because although I don't live in Jerusalem or Palestine, we see it and it tears our heart to pieces when we hear anything about checkpoints, occupation, and it triggers a lot of anger. So please, when you propose something, don't refer to anything that's dehumanizing. respect us as equals. And I know it might be a little different.
So let's go over each legislation and help me correct the language.
I will, but if I'm getting the chance, but that's why we will veto anything you say that's insulting, to put it this way. And again, no insult meant. Just like in the future, just be sensitive to our feelings. Be sensitive to our feelings.
No problem.
All right. And yeah, so yes, I mean, I know this is all simulation, and I know that we have very, very big battle here to overcome. But hey, baby steps. We'll get there somehow. I mean, imagine if Israelis and Palestinians are on the same side. We can rule the world, guys. Not that you don't already rule the world. but yeah, again, appreciate everybody here.
All right. Okay, Jay.
Yes, on when votes are taken and you can make the consideration, add the category of undecided. We've had some votes today where people who generally support the idea are forced to vote no because of certain aspects, let us say 1 or 2 objections. If you could say yes, no, or undecided, I think it would help you give some direction to how minds can be changed. Connected to that, and I don't mean on every vote, only on the votes that are contentious. And secondly, that amendments, that the more time and effort needs to be taken on amendments. So that, for instance, that checkpoint thing, if we spent most of the time today on that one subject, we could hammer out different words and phrases that would satisfy people and get us much closer to 100% of support.
I agree. I'm going to work on that. Yes.
And the last point is the United Nations. We did not mention United Nations one time today. It has been mentioned once in the past. The whole question of United Nations peacekeeping forces is something that should be revisited because in certain areas, certain spots, certain conditions, international peacekeeping the United Nations peacekeeping forces may be very workable, and we should be considering it. Thank you.
Hi, Don.
Hello, everybody. I really appreciate this conversation and these simulations. I'm Don Raphael. I'm based in San Francisco. I'm looking at this from an American Jewish perspective, but I consider myself to be a fierce peace activist. I've been on the board of American Friends of Combatants for Peace, which is a joint Palestinian-Israeli activist. I hope some of you have heard of them. But I'm wondering, Joseph, and to the group, and I really sense a very powerful group of people here. I appreciate these simulations, but as somebody mentioned earlier, they are a bit redundant. And I think they're important to bring new people in, but I'm wondering if you could create some further momentum to create a more permanent sort of peace process and public peace process that we could build on these legislations as a base and spend more time on them. In other words, kind of a dual front and try to create a membership or a movement where we get more continuing conversation beyond the simulations. Thank you.
What do you mean by permanent peace process?
Well, in other words, when I've been observing this, as someone mentioned earlier, over the last 6 or 8 months, I truly enjoy them. That's why I keep coming back. But they are redundant, and it's a simulation, and it's an exercise, and then that's it. And there's 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 people that join, and then 2 weeks later, it's done again. And I could see this concept of the IPC, like let's create a public peace process and create more of a movement. This is a true forum here. I see a lot of Palestinian, Israeli, Jewish, other participation. And I really think you could build something here on the concepts you're building, but maybe create more of a consistent movement that people can identify with. I can say I'm part of the IPC. Let's have a group that actually meets and talks about this legislation. And again, I'm speaking from an American Jewish, so I can't really participate in that regard.
So I think that's terrific. What you are proposing is let's have a committee, for instance, to discuss legislation.
And building this movement. the Confederation and building membership, or however you want to term it, and maybe having some core groups and then working out from there. Because I would love to connect with many of you, but it's just these simulations keep happening every few weeks, and it's
Great
hard to
idea. So please send me an email if you're josephavassar@gmail.com.
Absolutely, we'll do
Part
so.
of the
Love to speak
committee.
to you more and others.
Yes.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's a great idea, Don. Send me an email to josephavassar@gmail.com. We can have a meeting to discuss legislation, to discuss how to grow this. Terrific idea.
Thank you very much.
Terrific. Thank you, Don. Charles.
I was wondering if maybe from the comments I'm hearing, if it would be beneficial to put a time limit on the introductory section, after which there would be a more formal, like if this was a real parliament.
Okay, we'll discuss that with the committee.
Okay. I was going to say, if there was a real parliament, it would be run by Robert's rules. People would be recognized by the chair. They'd have like 30 seconds to speak or something on an
Right.
issue. Amendments could be offered. I mean, that would sort of like start creating the structure of the actual IPC parliament.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let me share the screen one more time. So, closing remarks, this Israeli government, these are facts. The Israeli and the Palestinian governments are unable to make peace. Democracy is the ultimate goal, and it can create equality and peace. The country of Estonia with 9.5 million people, 40% voting online. So it is possible to create a common election by way of a election online. And I just want to remind you that $100 million is being spent each day in a war between Gaza and Israel. $100 million could make this common government a reality. So I ask you to share and to write to your a letter to your
5 minuti.
whoever.
Ok, io finisco adesso.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to leave because I have to go and visit my grandchildren. I have so many grandchildren in the last 4 or 5 years that every weekend we go somewhere. So I am leaving, but Charles can continue with the discussion, and hopefully you'll talk more about Don's suggestion. So thank you so much, guys.
Have a good Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph.